Hello friends, this is Dr. Vanna. Welcome to all. Today I will discuss glomerular filtration and mechanism of its regulation under the topic renal physiology, and it is lecture part 2. So first of all, what are the different steps of urine formation? As you know, the glomerular filtration is the first step in the process of urine formation. So the process of urine formation basically involves 4 steps: glomerular filtration, tubular reabsorption, tubular secretion, and water conservation. So basically in the glomerular filtration, plasma like filtrate is formed in the Bowman's capsule space, and that is the called as filtrate. Next step is reabsorption. The important nutrients also get filtered through the glomerulus, so they are again reabsorbed, and maximum absorption is PCT and again returned into the blood. And in the part of tubular secretion, some waste products which are left within the blood, they are actively secreted, especially the potassium or hydrogen ions or uric acid, into the different part of tubules like PCT, DCT and CT. And the last is the water conservation or the process of urine concentration, and it happens in the loop part of the nephron, where the water is again reabsorbed into the blood and urine becomes concentrated. So first step is glomerular filtration. So basically the filtrate which is formed in this process, it is called as glomerular filtrate, and this glomerular filtrate is basically like a plasma, and its all composition is similar to the plasma except the proteins, because the proteins, they are larger and they do not get filtered through the glomerular capillaries. So as we know that the glomerular filtration, it is basically depends on the renal blood flow. So the glomerular filtration rate is about 125 ml per minute, or if we calculate over the period of day, it is 180 liter per day. And basically this glomerular filtration rate, it depends on 2 factors. First is net filtration pressure, and second factor is filtration coefficient. So we will discuss these two things in detail. As we know that the kidney receives almost 25 to 26% of the cardiac output, and it through the afferent arterioles, blood reaches into the Bowman's capsule in the glomerulus part, and over there it gets filtered almost if suppose the kidney receives 1000 ml of blood, so it's the cellular part is not get filtered, all the cellular part is just passed to the afferent arteriole, but the plasma part, it get filtered, and in plasma part also the proteins do not get filtered, in very little quantity may get filtered. So if the 1 liter we take as a 1 liter of blood here, so approximately 600 ml of plasma get filtered over there, and from the 600 plasma approximately 20% get filtered. So it is about 120 ml per minute. So this is how the whole 400 ml of the cellular component, it is passed again into the efferent arterioles directly, and the out of that 600 ml, 120 ml is filtered per minute, that reaches into this Bowman's capsular space. Then it comes into the tubular part of the nephron. And in the tubular part of the nephron, it gets absorbed maximum in this PCT part, then it passes through the different part of the renal tubule, and ultimately the urine is formed. So basically over here we will more focus over this step, that how this filtration, glomerular filtration happens, and what are the factors which are deciding the rate of glomerular filtration. So one thing is the filtration fraction. What is filtration fraction? As I earlier discussed, that suppose if there is a 600 ml plasma is filtered, so its 20% is only get filtered, that is 120 ml. So the filtration fraction is fraction of plasma that is filtered into the Bowman's capsular space per minute, and it basically depends on the GFR upon renal plasma flow into 100. So we can calculate this also by these two methods. If the GFR is known, then we can calculate the filtration fraction. If it is not known, then also we can calculate on an average in a healthy human subject, and it comes around 0.2, or it is approximately 20%. So approximately in a healthy person 15 to 20% is the filtration fraction, and out of that filtered the filtrate which is formed in the glomerulus, its 99% is reabsorbed again in the different part of the tubules. Maximum is in the PCT. It directly enters into these peritubular capillaries. This is the peritubular capillary. This, and only per minute only 1 ml of urine is excreted out finally. So in the over the period of whole day, approximately 1 to 2 liter urine is formed. Filtration coefficient. As earlier I told that the GFR, glomerular filtration rate, basically depends on two things. One is net filtration pressure. There are different pressures within the Bowman's capsule and the glomerular filtrate in the glomerulus part, and there is another thing, the filtration coefficient. So this filtration coefficient is basically, it depends on two factors. That is, this is the filtration membrane. So it depends basically on the two things. One is the permeability of this filtration membrane, and other is its surface area of the filtration membrane. So if there is any change in the surface area or in its permeability, definitely it will affect the filtration, glomerular filtration rate. So we can calculate also this filtration coefficient by this formula. So Kf is GFR upon net filtration pressure. So in a healthy person, it is calculated as 120 ml divided by the 10 net filtration pressure. It comes approximately 12 ml per mmHg per minute. So this is the filtration coefficient. So there are different pathological conditions in which the permeability of membrane is reduced, especially the common chronic disorders like chronic hypertension. In chronic hypertension, what happens, because of high pressure, this capillary layer, it gets damaged, and ultimately it becomes fibrosed. So its permeability gets reduced, as well as its surface area also get reduced. Similarly, in case of diabetes mellitus also, these capillaries, they get damaged and they get fibrosed. So that's why there is decrease in surface area as well as permeability, and ultimately they lead into the chronic renal failure. So there are different inflammatory conditions related to the kidney also, like pyelonephritis and glomerulonephritis. In these conditions, these two involve the nephrons. So in this case also, there is change in the permeability and surface area of the membrane. That's why there is fall in glomerular filtration rate. Now, what are the different filtration pressures? So in this picture here you can see this is the afferent arteriole, which is the part of renal artery. As it enters into the glomerulus, it enters into the Bowman's capsule. It gets divided into multiple tortuous capillaries and make a tuft. and ultimately they unite and they form efferent arterioles. So there is a high hydrostatic pressure in this capillary network. So that is called as glomerular blood hydrostatic pressure, and it is approximately 60 millimeters of mercury. As we know that in the systemic capillaries it is almost 25 to 30 millimeters of mercury, whereas in case of glomerular capillaries it is very high because there is a need to filter the blood. And second pressure is the colloidal osmotic pressure, and third pressure is the uh, capsular hydrostatic pressure. So these three forces, they are operating in different directions. Like this hydrostatic pressure, it is also called as outward force. It is making the passing of uh, plasma from capillary into the Wommel's capsular space, whereas the oncotic pressure or this colloidal pressure is because of the proteins which are present in the blood. So they they oppose the passing of plasma from capillary into the Wommel's capsule. Similarly, there is a certain pressure or there is a certain fluid within the Wommel's capsular space, and that also exerts certain hydrostatic pressure, that is almost about 10 millimeters or 18 millimeters of mercury. So it is 18 millimeters of mercury. So if we sum up all these forces, one is outward force, two are inward forces. So when we calculate this, so 60 minus 30 minus 18, so it comes 10 millimeters of outward force. So there is net filtration pressure is 10 millimeters of mercury, and which cause filtration of the blood and the plasma part enter into the capsular space. So all these pressures, they also depend on various factors and they alter the GFR. So in the next slide we will discuss that. So first thing is the hydrostatic pressure. So as we know that the main factor for filtration is the hydrostatic pressure. So that hydrostatic pressure depends on the renal perfusion, and renal perfusion basically depends on the systemic arterial blood pressure. So this glomerular blood hydrostatic pressure basically depends on two things. One is the pressure in the systemic arteriolar blood arterioles, means which is coming through the pressure, arterial pressure in the renal artery, that is a continuation in the kidney as a afferent arteriole. Then the resistance in afferent arteriole as well as efferent arteriole. So the vascular wall resistance in the afferent arteriole as efferent. Here you can see that the afferent arteriole diameter is more, and whereas efferent is less. So that's why there is much high pressure in the capillary tuft or glomerulus. Usually what happens, if we see the systemic capillary network, so over there capillary comes with the continuation or in connection with the some venule, and the pressure is very low, whereas this is the special formation within the kidney and such kind of arrangement of the capillary that there is the capillary is getting connected with itself with the capillary, and where the pressure is very high because of lesser dia of the efferent arterioles. So if there is high blood pressure, so that causes damage to the kidney, especially these glomerular capillary walls, and that causes a scarring. That condition is called as nephrosclerosis, or it may cause atherosclerosis of renal blood vessels, and ultimately leading to renal failure. So this systemic arterial blood pressure is the main factor in deciding the glomerular filtration rate, because the renal perfusion basically depends on that. Another factor related to the glomerular hydrostatic pressure is the afferent arterioles and efferent arterioles. So there are certain variations in the diameter of the afferent arterioles under different conditions. Like there are certain hormones or chemicals which cause constriction of afferent arterioles. These afferent arterioles, they have alpha 1 adrenergic receptors and they respond to the epinephrine and norepinephrine, and they are very strong vasoconstrictors, so they cause the constriction of afferent arterioles. Whereas the efferent arterioles, they do not have the very little receptors of alpha 1 adrenergic receptors, whereas they have high concentration of angiotensin II receptors. So that's why the efferent arterioles, they respond more to the angiotensin II. So if there is increase in the concentration of angiotensin II against the low blood pressure because under the influence of renin, so they cause basically the vasoconstriction of efferent arterioles, whereas the afferent arterioles, they more respond to the sympathetic stimulation or to the epinephrine and norepinephrine. And second chemical is the endothelin. It is also released by within the vascular wall of this afferent arterioles in different conditions, and these two cause constriction of afferent arterioles. Similarly, there are certain substances which have vasodilator effect. So these bradykinin, prostaglandin E2 and I2. Basically, these two are released by the smooth muscles of these blood vessels, and these prostaglandins, they are also secreted by the mesangial cells which are present in between surrounding these capillary tuft. In between these capillary tufts there are mesangial cells. They are also modified smooth cells. They have also constrictor capacity, as well as they also release these two substances, that these prostaglandin E2 and I2. So they have the vasodilator effects. So when and these two dilator chemicals, that is bradykinin and prostaglandins, they oppose the vasoconstriction produced by the epinephrine and norepinephrine under the influence of sympathetic stimulation. That's why in case of sympathetic stimulation, the blood vessels gets constricted all over the body, but except the smooth muscles. But in case of the kidney, there is no effect over the GFR, because these vasodilator chemicals, prostaglandin E2 and I2, they nullify the effect of epinephrine and norepinephrine. That's why the GFR remains almost same. It is not going to decrease until and unless there is very strong sympathetic stimulation. So there are few drugs, like in case of NSAIDs, non-steroidal anti-inflammatory drugs. Basically what they do, they are the inhibitors of these prostaglandin E2 and I2 synthesis. So they decrease the concentration of these two, and so there is no opposing effect over the vasoconstrictor factors. So ultimately they also cause renal insufficiency. That's why in chronic use of or in long-term use of NSAIDs, they have damaging effect over the kidney, especially these glomerulus, because these oppose the vasoconstrictor effect. So if there is strong vasoconstrictor and it persists for a long time, so it produces ultimately the hypoxic damage to these capillaries, and it may cause renal insufficiency and chronic renal failure. So these two vessels, that is afferent arterioles and efferent arterioles, they behave differently. Next important factor in deciding the GFR, especially in this pressures, first one was the glomerular hydrostatic hydrostatic pressure, and next is the blood colloidal osmotic pressure, and it is approximately 32 millimeters of mercury. So these osmotic pressures, they also change. There are certain conditions, pathological conditions, in which if there is hypoproteinemia, so the GFR will decrease because it is the inward force. So there will be less opposed to the hydrostatic pressure, so that's why there will be increase in GFR. So what are the conditions in which there is hypoproteinemia? So most and common malnourishment condition is protein energy malnutrition, protein losing enteropathies, liver cirrhosis. As we know, the liver is the main organ which synthesizes the albumin and different kind of globulins. So in case of chronic liver disorder leading to liver cirrhosis, there is hypoproteinemia or protein losing nephropathies. If there is any damage to these glomeruli because of any chronic inflammation, they may also cause damage to these capillaries, and there is loss of proteins, ultimately leading to hypoproteinemia. So all these conditions cause increase in GFR, and there is a condition in which GFR is decreased. Suppose if there is hyperproteinemia, means if they say there is hyperproteinemia, more protein solutes in the blood, so the viscosity of blood will increase, and there will be more colloidal osmotic pressure, so there will be more inward force, so the total effective net filtration pressure becomes lesser, and in that case the GFR will decrease. So the condition is multiple myeloma, in which the plasma cells, they become malignant and they synthesize abnormal myeloid proteins, and that myeloid proteins are getting circulated into the blood and increase the blood viscosity. Now, how this renal filtration or the glomerular filtration is being regulated? As earlier we discussed about the two things, that is the net filtration pressure. It depends on the two things, that is the glomerular hydrostatic pressure, colloidal osmotic pressure, and the Bowman's capsule pressure, hydrostatic pressure. If there is some obstruction to the urine output pathway, like in case of renal pelvis, there is some stone, or in the ureter, so because of backflow, there is increase in the there is increase in this Bowman capsule space. So in this capsular space, because of the backflow of the urine, there is more hydrostatic pressure, and that may also cause decrease in the GFR, and that comes under the cause of post-renal cause of renal failure. And the conditions which involve these glomerulus, they comes under the category of renal cause of renal failure, and the conditions which are related, like this systemic arterial blood pressure, high systemic arterial blood pressure, and all these things, these are comes under the pre-renal cause. So there are three main causes of renal failure: pre-renal cause, renal cause like glomerulonephritis, and the post-renal cause, like in case of backflow because of obstruction in the pathway of urine. So these three pressures, hydrostatic pressure, colloidal pressure, and the Bowman's capsular hydrostatic pressure, play a role in deciding the GFR. And before that was the filtration coefficient. It depends on two factors, that is the permeability of the membrane as well as its surface area. So now there are different mechanisms to regulate this glomerular filtration rate. Suppose if there is, why it is needed? As you know, in our body there is continuously metabolism is going on, and different metabolites are formed which are needed to be excreted from the body. So at least 500 ml of blood is 500 ml of urine is essential to filter out the different metabolites which are harmful to our body in a average adult person. But if someone is doing severe exercise or have intake of high protein diet, so in that case more amount of urine is needed. So on an average 500 up to the 2.5 liter quantity of urine is required within the physiological range, as per the activity of the person, as per the intake of the protein. So at least 500 ml is required. If it is less than 500 ml output, urine output, that condition is called oliguria. And if it is further lesser than that, so the metabolites will not be get excreted properly. There may be retention of urea and creatinine, and they will further produce different metabolic conditions like uremia and different other pathological clinical presentations. So that's why the regulation of GFR is very essential, because urine output depends on GFR. Suppose if GFR is too high, so urine output will be more, and there will be threat of dehydration and electrolyte depletion. And if it is very low, so there will be insufficient excretion of waste. So that's why regulation of glomerular filtration rate is very essential, and it is mainly regulated by, as we know that mainly it depends on glomerular hydrostatic pressure. So it is basically adjusted moment by moment by regulating the glomerular blood pressure. But there are other factors also which are also important, like other colloidal pressures and Women's capsular pressure, as well as the membrane also. So basically, in case of regulation of GFR, there are three homeostatic mechanisms. That is, first one is the renal autoregulation, second is the sympathetic control, and third one is the hormonal control. So under these three mechanisms, we will discuss that how the glomerular filtration rate is maintained within the physiological range. So this renal autoregulation, it is basically the intrinsic mechanism of the renal mass to regulate the GFR, whereas sympathetic control and hormonal control, it comes under the category of extrinsic, means which is outside of the kidney, which is related to the factors outside of the kidney for regulation of GFR. So first one is the renal autoregulation. It is the intrinsic ability of the nephron to adjust their own blood flow and GFR without external, that is nervous or hormonal control. And it enables the kidney to relatively make stable the GFR, and it works, the GFR, it will not change much within the physiological range of blood pressure, that is 60 to 180. So in under this variation, the kidney, because of the intrinsic properties of the kidney or the different regulatory mechanism of the kidney, the GFR will not change very much. There is very slight variation in the GFR. So in the renal autoregulation mechanism, there are two mechanisms which are involved: myogenic mechanism and tubuloglomerular feedback mechanism. Myogenic mechanism, it is because of the intrinsic, here you can see the blood vessels, afferent arteriole and efferent arterioles, they are lined by the smooth muscles, so they have the property to respond to the stretch rate, or that stretch is because of change in the blood pressure. So suppose if there is increase in arterial blood pressure in afferent arterioles, so because of that stretch stimulus, there is increase entry of the calcium ion into the smooth muscles, and that causes the constriction of afferent arterioles, and thus it prevents the excess blood flow to the capillary, glomerular capillary, and it protects it. Similarly, if there is decrease in blood pressure, so what will happen? If there is decrease in blood pressure, so in that case there will be less stretch towards the inner intima of these blood vessels, so they will be they may be more dilated. So in this way, these afferent vessels, they basically respond to the stretch over the inner wall of these vessels, and they respond accordingly. Either they may, if the pressure is high, they may constrict, and if it is low, they may dilate, and thus they maintain the GFR. Now tubuloglomerular feedback again. It is also an intrinsic mechanism. Suppose if there is high GFR, so what will happen? Will be increased NaCl load in the nephron lobe. So we know there is a macula densa. It is a part of juxtaglomerular apparatus. It is present in DCT. It will sense that increased concentration of sodium chloride, and it will secrete ATP. That ATP gets metabolized into the mesangial cells, and these mesangial cells, they are present surrounding the glomerular capillaries. So over there they metabolize these ATP to the adenosine, and that adenosine stimulates to the granular cells. So granular cells are the cells present in the juxtaglomerular apparatus in the arteriolar walls. They are also modified smooth muscles, and they constrict the afferent arterioles, and then there is reduction in GFR. So basically this is the whole intrinsic mechanism within the kidney, that if there is increase in NaCl concentration, it is sensed by the macula densa, which is a part of juxtaglomerular apparatus. Then it releases the ATP that get metabolized into the mesangial cell, and again it is a part of juxtaglomerular apparatus, and it stimulates to the JG cells to secrete out the renin, and that constricts the afferent arterioles, and then thus the GFR is reduced. Another mechanism is there. Suppose the condition is if there is decreased GFR, so there will be different mechanism for that. So suppose if there is decreased GFR, so that will be sensed by again the macula densa. So if there is really decreased GFR, so there will be less amount of sodium chloride ions, and that will be sensed by the macula densa, and that time macula densa will release some different kind of chemicals, that is prostaglandin C2, bradykinin and renin. And these prostaglandins and bradykinins, they are the they have dilator effect over the afferent arterioles, and whereas this renin will cause vasoconstriction through the via the angiotensin of the efferent arterioles. As earlier we have discussed that these two vessels, afferent arterioles and efferent arterioles, they behave differently. So these two vasodilator, PGE2 and bradykinin, they will dilate the afferent arteriole, and there will be constriction of efferent arteriole. So that's why there will be more hydrostatic pressure, and the GFR will be maintained. And another is the sympathetic control. So as you know that the kidney have sympathetic innervation, and this innervation follows through the blood vessels. So these renal blood vessels, they are very richly supplied by the sympathetic nerves. So suppose if there is fall in blood pressure again, so if there is fall in blood pressure, so it will be sensed by the systemic baroreceptors, which are present in aorta and into the carotids. So that fall in blood pressure will stimulate the baroreceptors in the carotid arteries and aorta. That will give stimulus through the 9th nerve and 10th nerve into the NTS, that will stimulate to the sympathetic system, and there will be release of adrenaline. So that sympathetic stimulus have direct effect over the blood vessels. These adrenaline and noradrenaline directly affect over the blood vessels, and similarly they also cause secretion of renin. So this has two effects. One is it directly act over the blood vessels, afferent arterioles, because it has presence of adrenergic receptors, alpha 1 adrenergic receptors, So they respond to the adrenaline and noradrenaline. Similarly, it also stimulates to the JG cells and they secrete renin. So, and then that through the release of renin, there is another mechanism, that is the hormonal regulation that initiates. So in suppose if there is a severe fall in blood pressure, so what will this may happen in case of circulatory shock or some physiological conditions like very strenuous exercise. In that condition also, in very severe exercise also, there is very strong sympathetic stimulation. Or if there is because of excess sweating, there may be fall in blood pressure. In acute conditions like in circulatory shock, again there is sympathetic stimulation. So in that case what happens, there is reduction in GFR. Why there is reduction in GFR and urine output? Because at that low in that state of low blood pressure, body tries to maintain the blood flow to the important organs like heart and brain. So that's why there is reduction in GFR, and it is the regulatory mechanism of the body, and the blood is redirected towards the heart and brain. So at that time there may be GFR may be very low, and it may be such less that it may be so less that there may be anuria also. So in this picture here you can see these are the granular cells. They are present in the efferent arterioles. In between these purple colors, these are the mesangial cells, and over this DCT nephron loop there are macula densa cells. Though these three things, mesangial cells, glomerular cells and macula densa, they are involved in intrinsic regulation of renal blood flow, as well as they also are involved in extrinsic mechanism also, like in renin-angiotensin axis. And last one is the hormonal regulation. So as we know, there is a renin-angiotensin aldosterone system. Suppose we take a situation like if there is decrease in renal perfusion, so what will happen? Why there is decrease in renal perfusion? It because of decrease in arterial blood pressure. So that decrease in arterial blood pressure, that may be because of hypovolemia. That the cause of hypovolemia may be some pathological conditions like vomiting, diarrhea, severe dehydration, or it may be because of blood loss. So there may be various causes. So that low blood pressure is being sensed by the juxtaglomerular apparatus, especially the JG cells. There are baroreceptors in the JG cells also. So what they do, so the JG cells which are present in kidney, they secrete renin, and that renin, this is the hormone. Basically it converts the angiotensin, which is formed by the liver and it is present in the blood, it converts it into its active form angiotensin 1. And when this angiotensin 1 through the circulation reaches into the lungs, over there is an enzyme called angiotensin converting enzyme. So that angiotensin converting enzyme converts angiotensin 1 in its more potent and active form, that is called angiotensin 2. And this angiotensin 2 produces various effects. It acts as multiple levels. First one is angiotensin 2 is a very potent sympathetic stimulator. It acts over the kidney, and over there it causes stimulation of adrenal cortex and release of aldosterone. And third one is, it is a very potent vasoconstrictor. So it directly acts over the arterioles, and it especially the efferent arterioles. Over there it causes strong vasoconstriction. So another effect is it directly acts over the pituitary, and over there it stimulates the release of ADH, antidiuretic hormone. So now all these things act at different levels. Like first one is It is a very strong vasoconstrictor. It constricts the vessels of the efferent arterioles, so there may be little increase in more glomerular hydrostatic pressure. It causes release of aldosterone. So this aldosterone, basically what it do, it will reduce the loss of blood from the tubular flow. It causes the retention of sodium, along with that sodium and chloride ions, along with that there is a retention of water. And the angiotensin, when it causes release of ADH, so this ADH, as its name suggests, it acts over the collecting duct. Further, it causes the reabsorption of water from the tubular fluid. So basically this mechanism checks the water loss, so that's why there is increase in the blood volume. And second thing is there is peripheral constriction, peripheral vasoconstriction because of sympathetic stimulation, that also causes increase in peripheral resistance. And there is efferent arterioles of the glomerular of the woman's capsule, also they get constricted, so there is increase in the hydrostatic pressure within the glomerulus. So it operates at multiple level. There is increase in the blood volume, there is increase in the peripheral resistance, so that's why there is restoration of normal blood pressure. And when the blood pressure becomes normal, arterial blood pressure becomes normal, so there will be normal perfusion of these kidneys. So this is the manner how the renal blood flow is maintained via this renin-angiotensin axis. So there are certain conditions, some are physiological, some are pathological, which are related with the variation in GFR, and they are very common to know. Like commonest physiological condition in which the GFR is increased. Usually in all the pathological conditions also the GFR will not increase usually. But in case of pregnancy, this is the normal physiological condition. As you know that in pregnancy there is hypervolemia, increase in the blood volume. So that's why there is a more renal perfusion and there is more and more GFR. And decreased conditions of GFR, like postures. In upright posture the GFR is little bit different, and in lying position GFR, because of better perfusion, the GFR is better. In a standing position there is effect of gravity, whereas in lying position there is no effect of gravity, so there are changes. Or in case of severe exercise also the GFR gets reduced. Arterial hypertension, it may be because of hemorrhage, so again GFR is reduced because the renal perfusion will decrease, so GFR will decrease. Hypovolemia, it may be because of vomiting, diarrhea or burn, because of loss of blood volume, because of loss of water in these conditions from the blood volume becomes lesser, that causes less arterial pressure, and because of that the perfusion pressure of renal artery is also lesser, that causes less capsular hydrostatic pressure and decreased GFR. Similarly in congestive heart failure also the renal perfusion is poor. In glomerular nephritis another factor is important, that is the filtration coefficient. In case of glomerulonephritis, the filtration membrane, its permeability as well as its surface area both get reduced, and acute obstruction of ureter or renal pelvis. In this case what happens in acute obstruction of ureter, or if it is usually common in case of stones, in case if some stone gets plugged into the ureter or renal pelvis. So because of the backflow of the urine into the woman's capsule, because urine, the formation of urine it is a continuous process, so there is continuous formation of urine, but it is because of blockage it is not possible to escape up to the bladder. So all the fluid gets collected into the renal pelvis, and because of backflow there is increase in the woman's capsular hydrostatic pressure. So that is the opposing force of the glomerular filtration hydrostatic pressure. So that's why there is decrease in GFR. So this is all about the glomerular filtration rate, its regulation and different pathological conditions. Thank you.